Hello, my name is Scribbles, coach of the Colorado Cavaliers, and welcome to week 2 of the Mt Silver Draft League. This week we're up against Jakestemmet and the Boston Bronzongs. You can see their roster above me here. Their team is amazing. Looking over it, especially against my team, I have a lot of problems to deal with this week. Specifically, Tapu Fini kind of just invalidates Hydreigon in a lot of ways. Hydreigon doesn't really have anything to harm Tapu Fini. Now, you might be saying, okay, you could run some sort of meme belch set, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to run this meme team that I constructed kind of in a feverish state, trying to figure out how to actually beat the Boston Bronzongs this week. So looking at his team, Melmetal, Tapu Fini, Incineroar, Aerodactyl, Venusaur, Piloswine, Sirfetch'd, Linoone, Rotom, Latios. I think this team is a perfect example of what I think you should be doing in Draft League. I think you need every Pokemon on your roster to be a threat to come every single week. And I think that's the best way to structure your roster because it makes prep very, very difficult for your opponent. And you'll see several kind of ripple effects onto my build because of the depth of my opponent's team. Kind of jumping into things here, we're starting off with Smacks, the Seismitoad. The theme this week is breakfast cereals, and so we've got Smacks, Frog. I don't know if anyone remembers that cereal. It's decent. Smacks is here to check Melmetal and get chip on Melmetal. The overall strategy of the team here is basically trying to cheese a victory out. When you have a bad matchup, I think kind of doing some things a little bit more off the wall, trying to do something unorthodox can be a valid strategy. Sometimes that's in the form of mono-choice items. You go with all choice band, choice scarf, choice specs, that type of thing. In this case, I'm going for kind of setup spam to some degree. But even with a team build like that, you kind of still need some standard sets. So here, Smacks, Seismitoad, is a Rocky Helmet, max HP, max defense. I'm trying to get chip off on a banded Melmetal, essentially. Double Iron Bash is not a 2-hit KO on this set, and they'll take a 6 of their HP every time they touch Seismitoad, essentially. The rest of the set is basically unimportant. Scald, Knockoff, Earth Power, Stealth Rock. These are ways for me to get a little bit more chip on Melmetal or anything that might switch in after Melmetal takes the Rocky Helmet damage. Maybe get up rocks. I'm not looking to accomplish too much beyond that. Next set here is Comic Crunch, Captain Crunch by another name. Close Combat, Poison Jab, Knockoff, Ice Punch on an Assault Vest Sheer Force set. Max Attack, Adamant. We want to get the most amount of damage possible. Speed is to creep Piloswine, so I will outspeed an uninvested Piloswine or a Piloswine with 4 EVs invested. And then max special defense otherwise. This is somewhat of a lure set, but not really. I'm hoping to basically cheese a kill on Tapu Fini or Latios with this set. Knockoff or Ice Punch both basically kill Latios. They bring it down into range of any of the other attacks on my team, so basically means that I can eliminate it. If it's not HP or defense invested, Knockoff, Ice Punch have a really good chance of KOing Latios. Close Combat into Poison Jab actually does kill Tapu Fini. It's just max HP, I believe, and I survive a Moonblast even at -1. The thought behind this set is I can basically get a kill on one of the Pokemon that's a huge threat to my team and very difficult for me to break through otherwise. Next up we have Raisin Bat. This is Heavy Duty Boots, Inner Focus. This is basically a defogger for the team, and you'll see why I ended up running Crobat as a defogger. Rotom's a much better defogger in this particular matchup because it is able to threaten out the opposing Rock Setter in Piloswine, which Crobat can't do. Something you want to focus on for your defogger is to have a good matchup against the opposing Hazard Setters. I ended up going with Crobat with the defog and Heavy Duty Boots. I'm running Inner Focus in this case because I want to avoid Intimidate, and Infiltrator can actually be a detriment against Melmetal, for instance. I want to damage the substitute if possible. I don't want to leave a Pokemon substitute intact in any case, especially not someone like Lottie. The EV investments are a little bit crazy, so this is a spread courtesy of J-Mac, who's another participant in the Tyranitar League. So this set here survives Knock into CC from Sirfetch'd, Sludge Bomb from Venusaur doesn't 4-hit KO, Scarf uninvested, or Surf from an uninvested Tapu Fini is not a 3-hit KO. Draco from Choice Scarf Lottie doesn't OHKO. The Icicle Crash from Piloswine doesn't kill, neither does 2 Ice Shards. It also lives a double Iron Bash from Melmetal with protective pads, so non-boosting item essentially, and it has enough offensive investment to Oko, Surfetched, and Venusaur, which is pretty much what this Crobat's designed to do. It's a switch in to Surfetched, which my team otherwise doesn't have, and it is a switch into Venusaur, which my team otherwise struggles to deal with to some degree. This speed investment is for max speed Lottie. Other than that, it's kind of just a glue set. It doesn't really accomplish anything on its own per se, but it kind of allows me to pivot around in a way to set up the rest of the team. The next one is Rotomo Tricks here. This is a Leaf Storm, Volt Switch, Reflect, Light Screen, Light Clay set. So this is kind of what enables the janky brew, or the janky team that I'm bringing this week to try and cheese out a victory. Leaf Storm at max Modest, Oko's max HP Piloswine, which is really important to keep rocks off the field and to also eliminate that Pokemon, essentially. I don't want Piloswine to be alive against some of my other Pokemon because a lot of them are fairly weak, and I don't want rocks up. They're fairly weak until they get set up, at least. The speed investment is for Tapu Fini, who I can outspeed if I run max speed. So an offensive Fini I would outspeed as long as it's not timid. So I outspeed Modest Fini, essentially, which I think is a reasonable set in this matchup. Pretty straightforward. Basically, I want to use this to get screens up, Volt Switch out into one of the next 2 Pokemon, which are my win cons, and hopefully set up and cheese a victory out of the game otherwise. Next up is Victini. This is a Weakness Policy, Stored Power, Focus Blast, Shadow Ball, Flame Charge set with enough speed to outspeed Scarf Modest Lottie at +2. So it's a very optimistic set. I am hoping to, with Rotom, get Reflect up, bring in Incineroar, Volt Switch out into Victini, hopefully having them either Flare Blitz or something to that nature into my Rotom, basically then taking no damage on Victini. Flame Charge to get to +1 speed as the opponent goes for a knockoff to activate my Weakness Policy, and then Flame Charge again or Focus Blast to kill the Incineroar or get to +2. Once I get to +2 attack, +2 special attack, +2 speed, I can generally Oko Fini. Max HP, it's like an 81% roll. If they have special defense investment, it gets a little bit more difficult, but they're not able to Oko me back as long as I'm at a reasonable value of health because of the HP investment I have. So a pretty optimistic set. I'm not sure if it'll do much, but it's one of my win cons. The other win con is Honeyclef here, which is an Moonblast, Fire Blast, Calm Mind, Moonlight set with a Misty Seed and an Unaware ability. So Misty Seed is to kind of get around Trick Latios, who can derail any kind of Clefable setup set. If I get a Choice Scarf or if I get a Choice Specs, something to that nature, I am crippled essentially, and I can't get a sweep. Unaware is forced because Linoon with a Belly Drum set sweeps through my team. I don't really have a good answer for that at all. Cursula with a Perish Body could do something, but it's a waste of a Mon to bring the Pokemon just for that. So I had to run Unaware, which meant I had to run Moonlight because Soft Boiled and Unaware are incompatible. A little unfortunate, but I think this set can do work provided Incineroar is weakened and I get enough chip on Melmetal that Fire Blast kills. And realistically, I just need 2 Rocky Helmets. So double Iron Bash into Seismitoad, it's in range of +1 Fire Blast, and I'm not going to bring Clefable hard in on Melmetal. I'm going to get the opportunity to get a +1/+1 with Calm Mind before going for a sweep. So that's the idea behind the team. We're going to see how it works. I'm not optimistic. I think this matchup's pretty bad. I think the Bronzongs are a very well-built team, and maybe we can cheese them out. So here we are at the battle. Looking at team preview, I don't see Linoon, so I'm a little bit tilted to be running Unaware, but it's less tilting than if I had run Magikarp and did see Linoon, because at that point I would know that I am one bad turn away from just losing. Looking at the preview, generally speaking, leads, nothing looks great. Latios looks like a huge threat. pivoting options on the opponent's team are very strong. I don't really know a great lead here. I ended up going with Conkelder here because I thought that it threatened the most on the opponent's team, and with the AV, I might be able to get a cheeky kill either on the Lottie or perhaps get a kill on or do a lot of damage to Ensign, or maybe get the close combat into poison jab kill on Tapu Fini. Basically, it exerted a decent amount of pressure, which is kind of what I wanted because I needed to maintain momentum. And realistically, I just didn't like a lot of the other leads because I felt like I would fall behind right away. So I led with Conk, and Jake leads with Lottie. So this particular position was kind of something I was hoping would happen at some point in the game. I know I can take any attack from from Latios with the AV. The only thing I have to worry about here basically is Choice Specs. Choice Specs kills me. Modest, it's all but one roll kills me. Timid, it's like a 43% chance to knock me out. So in this position, I don't really have much else to do. I'm going to go for my attack. I think I clicked knock off in this position. Ice Punch does a fractional amount more, but they're really similar. And Psychic ends up killing me. So, damn. This was kind of a pretty fundamental turn. This revealed to me that my opponent was Specs, which is nice information to have. It allowed me to realize that I'm pretty much screwed the rest of this game. I don't have any switch in to Specs Lottie. I never really did. The one thing that the team could have had would be Hydreigon and Clefable. Between the two of them, they are immune to its attack, so it would force Jake into a bunch of 50-50s. But in this case, because it's Specs Latios and it just kills Conk, I'm hugely behind here. And realistically, my only option now is to try and force Latios out with the only Pokemon I have that really threatens it, which is Victini. So I go into Victini. This doesn't necessarily bluff anything because I know he Specs and Victini resists. That's basically the extent of my choice here. So I go in, I click Shadow Ball. Shadow Ball does the most damage to Latios here, and I don't have any, I can't set up right now. I'm not in a good position to set up. So I just launch off the Shadow Ball. Actually, the Spadef drop on Incineroar. In this position, I thought for a long time about my next move. So I have Focus Blast, and a majority of sets, Incineroar dies to Focus Blast here. I think my opponent can do a calc and see that I'm heavily specially attack invested. It's hard to get information from rolls when they're low damages, but I think my opponent's able to ascertain that much information. You're not going to run Shadow Ball on like a mixed set. I don't feel. I think he would probably pretty strongly invest into special attack. So in this position, Focus Blast is at the very least a legitimate threat to my opponent. I'm worried about my opponent being Choppleberry to reduce fighting damage, and also potentially worried about them just hard switching out and losing even more momentum. They might be thinking that I'm Scarfed into Shadow Ball or something like that. The damage roll would align with a modest Scarf. So there's a lot of interplay here. I end up deciding to switch out into Crobat because Crobat can lose its item. My opponent doesn't have any hazards available, and I don't need heavy duty boots. And I was hoping to try and set up later, and I just didn't feel comfortable in this position. With my low speed too, I don't think it's actually possible for me to be outsped by, it's not to be outsped by Incineroar, but they could be a Choice Scarf set or something. So I pivot out. I think it's the wrong play. I think I have to play aggressive. I needed to go for the Focus Blast here to try and pick up a KO, especially getting the Spadef drop. I pivot out into Crobat. Opponent goes to a knockoff. It does 52. This reveals that it's a fairly offensive Incineroar, which makes me even sadder about not clicking the Focus Blast and picking up a KO in all likelihood. In this position, what I end up going for, I roost to try and keep Crobat healthy because Crobat is my designated switch into Surfetch and Venusaur. Opponent flare blitzes, does 62. I'm okay with this kind of interaction where I'm losing health and they're losing health as well. So I'm fine to just stay in and keep roosting and keep chipping Incineroar down. My opponent reveals Parting Shot. Parting Shot's troublesome for me to set up against because, one, it kind of invalidates Victini with the weakness policy sword power set, because Parting Shot will reduce my boost and therefore reduce the power of sword power. It also is really annoying for Clef because Clef is not able to simultaneously heal and set up against Incineroar because, well, it's not able to simultaneously heal, set up, and do damage against Incineroar because of Parting Shot. So these first 4 or 5 turns have gone basically as bad as they could go. Opponent Parting Shot's out into Melmetal. I just U-turn. There's no reason not to U-turn that I can really think of. They could be some really bizarre set, but I don't think there's any reason not to U-turn in this position. You cover the opponent doubling or anything along those lines. I U-turn out into Seismitoad, trying to enact my game plan, get the chip off on Melmetal to allow me to sweep later, which works. I get the damage off. Melmetal is now in range of max HP. Melmetal is in range of +1 Fire Blast from Clef. So Seismitoad did its job. That was its job. You passed the salt. I get a knockoff on Venusaur. Venusaur reveals to be Black Sludge. Bulky Venusaur is a bit problematic. It's harder to deal with than an offensive one, which I have good switch-ins to. Venusaur Leaf Seeds Crobat, which means I'm going to get a lot of chip taken. I know I can kill an offensive Venusaur. I'm not sure about a bulky one. I go for the U-turn to try and remove the hazards, and not sure if I can KO. Unfortunately, my opponent has Protect Leech Seed, which is going to be a really annoying set as well. So really good prep from Jake overall in this matchup. Even against strong prep will beat janky builds as well, but it's been really solid from Jake thus far. I go for the Roost just to stay healthy again. I need to switch into Surfetched and Venusaur. And in this position, I'm able to U-turn out again for the same reasons as earlier against Melmetal. I go into Seismitoad to try and get some chip off on Incineroar. Unfortunately, my opponent is able to get the quote-unquote slow U-turn with Parting Shot, and they bring in Lottie again. And every time Lottie comes in, it's a KO. Unfortunately, none of my Pokemon have the bulk required to take 2, and realistically, my Pokemon are just not in a good position in this matchup against Lottie, especially not against the Specs Lottie. So Seismitoad's done its job. I sack Seismitoad. This allows me to go into Victini and kind of reproduce the loop that we had earlier with Shadow Ball threatening a lot of damage and then resisting the psychic attack that my opponent went for. I could have hard switched into Victini and taken a lot of damage, but it didn't seem prudent to me because Seismitoad had already done its job, and I really need Victini healthy to try and set up and win late game. So the same exchange happens. My opponent goes into Tapu Fini this time. Perhaps you don't want to repeat the exact same cycle and allow me to make a prediction. I just end up going for Shadow Ball. It does nothing, and I hard pivot out into Rotom Mo. This was the kind of position I was hoping to get in, is Rotom against Tapu Fini, because Rotom pressures Fini out. Tapu Fini reveals Light Screen, which is concerning to me because that makes Clefable's sweep much more difficult at the end of the game. It also means that it's probably a somewhat defensive Tapu Fini. But they pivot out into Venusaur. I am able to get up a Light Screen and then a Reflect, and I take 41% from Sludge Bomb with the Light Screen up. So I've got both screens set up with Light Clay, and I'm able to pivot out here. The only unfortunate thing is that I know this Venusaur is defensive with Leech Seed, and I am not a Magic Guard Clef, nor am I a Mystical Fire Clef, which was a set I considered. So I can't really set up on this Venusaur at all because of Leech Seed. So I'm somewhat forced into either Victini or Crobat, and both of them just feed Venusaur's health. So there isn't a good play here. I Volt Switch out into Victini, hoping to threaten it out. If I dodge a Leech Seed there, maybe I'm in a decent position. Unfortunately, they hit. They're able to protect and gain some HP or cause me to lose HP. I reveal Flame Charge. Pretty much the cat's out of the bag here. I'm not going to make any progress the rest of this game. I get to +1. They Sludge Bomb for a little bit of damage and just heal up. In this position, I hard switch out because I know they've just got another protect and more healing, and I need to basically get this Venusaur out of the way. They go for the protect. I bring in Crobat. They protect again. They are not healing up here, but they're scouting my move and stalling out my screen, which is really important. In this position, I decide to just double Brave Bird. I don't really have a great play. I could try and U-turn out, but if they stay in, I just get leech seeded again, barring going into Rotom, but Rotom isn't doing very much in this position. So I just go for the Brave Bird. This is kind of just, it's a somewhat prediction, but it doesn't really matter. I pick up a KO for differential sake, which is nice. And from here, they go back out into Lottie, which means another kill for them. I go for the Brave Bird just to get off some damage. It would have been nice if I could have gotten some damage earlier. So this is a position where if Comet had been able to damage Lottie, I would have been able to kill Lottie here. And, if 7 other things went my way, maybe I'd be in a good spot. But unfortunately, they did not. And Lottie gets another kill. I have to go back into Victini to force it out. I guess the Brave Bird did put Latios in range of Shadow Ball. They go into Incineroar again, and we're kind of just in the same position. I make a double into Rotom. It's basically my only play that maybe got me back into the game to some degree, because this allows me to get up screens predicting their switch. I go for the Reflect, and I die to Flare Blitz. In hindsight, having a dual screens Rotom with no bulk, it sounds really bad, and I kind of realized this after the match happened. But I did really want that kill on Piloswine to prevent rocks going up, so I know why I did it, but I think if you just look at it at face value, it's really weird to have dual screens Rotom and have absolutely no defense investment. Flare Blitz is not the optimal play from my opponent. They get the kill, but it does get me a free switch into Clefable in this instance, which is the only thing that can really set up because Victini is chipped down pretty low. And getting Clefable in, I can just go for the setup here. Flare Blitz is not doing anything with Reflect Up. So I get a Calm Mind up. In this position, I know I kill Melmetal. I currently survive Choice Banded Poison Jab from Surfetched. Lottie isn't doing anything to me, especially if I get another Calm Mind up. Feeny is likely not doing anything to me. So this position's almost decent. At the very least, I'm going to put a lot of pressure on Jake from here. Parting Shot's a really good play here to keep my special attack down. I go for the Calm Mind to stay at +1 so that I know I'll be able to kill Melmetal. And then I go for Fire Blast, and I miss. Double Iron Bash kills me. Jake cited here that would be a roll for the game, possibly, assuming I was Flamethrower, which is the more common set. And it turns out he wasn't max HP Melmetal, so it was a roll at this HP. Fire Blast, I don't believe was. Even if I hit Fire Blast here, I still lose the game. All Jake has to do here is pivot between, like, you just go straight Tapu Fini and set up a light screen and stall out my Reflect. And since I have no way of boosting my defense, I can't simultaneously heal and do damage to Incineroar / Surfetch. So I also didn't speed creep Surfetch because I assumed that my opponent would not allow Clefable to speed creep Surfetch, and I needed the defensive investment anyway. So regardless what happens, is I would need to be able to take an attack from Incineroar and Surfetched, and I could not do that if they were Choice Banded Poison Jab. And Jake confirmed that he was. So if that hits, the differential's closer. Maybe I get 2 kills and it's a 3-0 instead of a 5-0, but I miss, I go down, and then Victini can't do anything here because my set's garbage. I went for the Focus Blast because I would kill Melmetal, which would be nice, but at this point I've got nothing. So the game ends in a 5-0, and yeah, I take a huge L here, which, to be honest, wasn't surprising given the matchup, and wasn't surprising given the kind of bad prep, I guess the janky prep. It's probably my worst loss in Mt Silver that I can honestly remember since like maybe my first week in Mt Silver. Really well played to Jake on the team build. really well drafted team. He played really well. I think the only thing that either one of us would say was maybe a slight mistake was flare blitzing into the Rotom to give me a chance to set up. But in the end, he still had a lot of outs, and he was still well positioned to win. So that'll do it for this week. Brings us to 1-1 with a -2 differential. Hoping to bounce back next week and kind of get back up over that 500 mark. I know 1-1 is 500, but with a negative differential, you figure you'd be in the lower half of the 500. But that'll do it for me. See you guys next time.